but I haven't read any work that I've like that I've written, that I've put time into. It's a little bit of a vulnerable thing, but I'm really excited to be doing it here with you guys. Um, I'm also going to be reading the work of some other poets, both contemporary and a little bit less contemporary. Everybody whose work I'm reading is a pretty treasured part of my poetry community. Um, some people I'm a little closer to than others, but um, these are people that I really cherish and respect and am glad to know at least a little bit. Um, I'm gonna hang out and chat for a couple minutes. I'm actually gonna fix my light. There we go. Light's a little better now. Um, it's tough getting that balance between clarity and glare. And I just knocked over my mic. Sorry if that was loud. Hope it wasn't. Nobody's here yet, so at least I didn't bother anybody who's here. But sorry, I've got a slightly new setup today. I think it's going to make my audio quality a lot better. It's making the visual quality a little bit better, but I'm still getting used to the fact that I talk with my hands a lot, and there's this one point where I cannot put my hand or I'll knock over the mic. So um, I'll get used to that soon, I hope. But for right now, I'm just kind of getting used to things and feeling things out. Um, I'm gonna. Hello, it looks like somebody just appeared. How are you? Um, I hope you stick around and have fun. Hello! Hello to Miss Leafy and hello, Kate. I'm so glad you're here. Um, Thank you so much. That's really sweet, Miss Leafy. Um, did you tell me what your blog name was? It's not. I think you did, but it's not clicking at this very second. I also, well, Kate's just shown up. I want to say a huge thank you to Kate. She is an just a truly incredible person and a brilliant creator, and she gave me the most gorgeous pep talk a couple minutes before I went on. Um, and I don't know if I don't know if I'd be pulling this off. Yes, awesome. Um, so Miss Leafy over here is actually the first person who agreed to have their poetry read on my stream. Um, but yeah, I'm really excited that both of you guys are here. Um, I think I'm gonna start by reading one of mine, and then I'll get right into reading yours. Okay? Does that sound good? I'm gonna assume that it does. So this poem. Oh, thank you. Um, this poem is called Sea Glass. I wrote it a little while ago. I think I wrote it about a year ago. I was reading a lot of at the time. One of the nice things about being on Tumblr is I read a lot of really great and innovative poets, and I was reading a lot of people that I really admired. Even though they kind of do a different thing than what I do, I felt like, and I was kind of a little bit frustrated that some of my poetry felt a little bit not quite as sharp as I wanted, and then I realized there's a reason for that. And so I wrote this poem. Um, it's called Sea Glass. I read the poets I wish I could be. All my edges are blunted by the waves, smashed beer bottles smoothed to sea glass. So all you can see is diffused light and not the carelessness or rage that led to these fragments. I write poetry like sea glass. The crystalline points of break that first caught the light have long since been stolen and made soft. I value softness, but yearn to recapture the clarity of light alive on a new shattered edge. I can't arm anyone with blades. I can only dole out glimmering worry stones of glass, meant for a pocket, meant to be held as a reminder that the scarlet will fade. I am the way I'm meant to be, I know. the gentle results of cruel storms, but the storms churn under my skin as I read the poets I wish I could be again. Um, yeah, so that's my first poem that I'm gonna read for you guys today. I hope you liked it. It looks like we've got a couple more people hanging out. If you'd like to, please introduce yourselves. Thank you. Hi, Steve. Thank you for the snapping applause. Steve is a dear friend of mine, and I'm very, very glad that he's here. I'm very glad you're here, Steve. So next, I am going to read the lovely Miss Leafy's poem. Let me scroll back. This is the first one. I put everybody's poems that I'm reading into my drafts, and since you're the first person who said I could read a poem, yours is the first one in my drafts. Um, so this is by Miss Leafy. Her Tumblr handle is Nothing I Write Is For You. And if you want to go ahead and throw a link to that in the chat, you're totally, absolutely welcome to. Um, so I liked a lot of the poems that I saw, but this one just kind of fit the vibe that I was going for a little bit. And the title comes from a challenge, and the title is Find Me in October. Yesterday was just the same, dragging along as if weighted by the heaviness of my sins. I waited by the river, 1,000 songs inside my head. Their words played with the loneliness that blew away with the wind. Absence is not always a longing to be felt, when presence is not always what it seems to be. So I linger on the taste of memory, staring into the lonely sun, waiting to forget you, trying to remember that time you found me, that one cold October. Um, so that and the kind of subtitle of this poem is When My Life Was Changed Forever. Um, I think you guys can see why I like this one so much and wanted to read it. It's very beautiful. Thank you. I rehearsed all the poems before I read them just to make sure I kind of had my cadence right. I teared up a couple times rehearsing, but I'm really glad that you liked my reading. I'm gonna go ahead and post it. All right. Thank you. I've been practicing. I think I might have I practiced a couple times. So this next poem that I'm going to read is not one of mine, but it's a poem that I love a lot. I'm kind of waiting for everyone whose poems I'm reading to kind of get here, so I'm not uh, reading right away. Also, if I said I'd read your poem and you appear, please pop into the chat and let me know. Um, I'm glad I'm good at reading because my future job is being an English teacher, and a big part of that is um, reading people's work, reading aloud to the students. I think that's a really good way to bring stuff alive. I'm a big proponent of reading in the classroom, so I'm glad I'm good at it. Um, so I'm going to read Geometry by Rita Dove. Rita Dove is one of the poets that I studied in college, and I actually have two poems here by her that I wanted to read. She's just one of my favorites. I haven't read all her work yet, but she's somebody that moved me. Hello, Lunar Agent. Did I say I was gonna read one of your poems, or are you just no? You're in my chat, and you didn't throw me a poem to read this time around. Um, right, I'm keeping track of everything, but I'm really glad you're here. So I am going to read Geometry by Rita Dove. I prove a theorem, and the house expands. The windows jerk free to hover near the ceiling. The ceiling floats away with a sigh. As the walls clear themselves of everything but transparency, the scent of carnations leaves with them. I am out in the open, and above the windows have hinged into butterflies, sunlight glinting where they've intersected. They are going to some point, true and unproven. Um, So that's one of the poems by Rita Dove that I wanted to share, and it's I don't know something about I love this poem, but also something about the idea of like the house dissolving as something is proven. It just kind of really moved me, especially in these times. So I really wanted to read it to you guys. Um, so I think that thank you. Um, I'm doing my best. Yeah, I highly recommend reading Rita Dove. If you want to grow as a poet, if you just want to like enjoy your life a little bit more and read some really good poetry, her work is really brilliant, and she has this gift of creating beautiful imagery with language that's both like a little. There's a hint of the mystical, but it's also very clear, and that's something that I really would love to kind of like embody in my own poetry as I grow. So I highly recommend her. Um, so I think I'm going to do a poem that I wrote about writing and about like the concept of muses. Um, so I'm gonna do this one next. It's called Invocation of the Muse. I wrote this pretty early on. Um, I was taking my first creative writing class that I took in college when I wrote this one. I didn't write it for that class. I wrote it for a challenge, but the challenge was to incorporate a foreign language into your poem, and I chose Latin because I wanted to know exactly what I was saying. There's this little chant. So the words that come right after each Latin word just kind of translate what they are. It's the conjugation of the verb to be in the present tense. It's nothing too meaningful on its own, but I hope that I made it meaningful in this poem. Um, and it's also it's kind of about like creative frustration, and that was kind of a that's been a little bit of a mood for me lately. I don't know about you guys, but I've in this whole kind of like quarantine social distancing time, I've been going back and forth between being very inspired and not being able to drag a single idea out of my head. So I don't know. I hope it resonates with you, and I hope you like it. Invocation of the Muse. Soon, I am losing my hope in my muse. All the nonsensical classical chants I can imagine conjure up nothing but blank paper. S, you are finally here, as if in a ghostly form. Give me something to work with, some well to draw from. That was the deal. Est. It is my job to write, to splash my heart on the page in scarlet. Yours to provide the paintbrush to smooth the splatters. Sumus. We are somewhere closer to harmony. I need more. I need alchemy. I need to turn my blood to gold on the page. I need to illuminate. Estes. You are all too loud. Does alchemy require silence? Am I misaligned with the universe? Is it discord that stems the flow of words? Sunt. They are finally falling into place. If not classical, universal, golden, shining, divinely inspired, they are still words. Um, so yeah, that's an older poem of mine. I hope that you like that one. Let me know what you thought with any of these. The next one I'm going to read is by a writer who I have been talking to a little bit on and off for a little while now. She's not super. She's got a blog. It's pretty well known, but and writing is only like a tiny part of what she does on it. But her poetry is really beautiful, and it moves me a lot. So this is a poem by Vampire Apologist on Tumblr, also known as Molly Ann, which is her real name. I'm a goof, don't mind me. But yeah, here's she's written a couple poems that have really moved me, and here's one of hers. Often I want to be a girl again, to run and play and breathe easy again. But then I realize I'm remembering an idea of a childhood, or maybe someone else's, because my first breath was a wail that's carried until now. And I've never known a time I wasn't weighed down by worries bigger than me. And I've added a brick to my back each day since I was 7. So I look ahead, halfway folded over myself, and I wonder if I'll get back the time I was cheated out of when I was young. Wring my hands like I wring my soul, hoping that some pieces of that lost peace might come dripping out into one more sip. Wonder if there is a gentle morning for me, a quiet afternoon, a warm and easy evening somewhere on my horizon. I've been falling since I was in 2nd grade. I think I deserve a soft landing. Yeah, so that's her poem, and it's really beautiful, and it's one that uh, moves me a lot every time I read it. Every so often she'll share it again. It's called Softly Softly. I forgot to share the title. She wrote this one in 2018, and yeah, it's every so often I'll see it again, and it's something that always just moves me whenever I hear it. So yeah, I hope you liked it. All right, and um, my next poem is about, yeah, she's really good, right? I wish she could have been here for the live stream, but she gave me permission to read her poem. Everybody did whose poem I'm reading, with the exception of a couple of very famous poets. Um, but she said the she's quarantining in a camper in the forest, and the internet connection is very just about impossible. So I knew she couldn't be here, but I'm hoping she'll get a chance to check this out at some point. Um, so my next poem, I've got a bunch of poems about mythology in here. Um, I read about mythology a lot. Um, it's just kind of it's a motif of mine. I was always a mythology kid. I minored in classics when I was in college, and I like, especially, I'm really grateful for like the Percy Jackson series because it kind of got a lot of people into mythology, which means that I can make these references, and instead of seeming really like classical or what like very like old, it's something that people have a bit more of a touchstone for. So instead of making these like lofty illusions, I can make these illusions, and people get it, and I love that. So I'm gonna start with a poem that went really viral. I'm gonna do 3 poems relating to Persephone. One went really viral, and the 2 others are also, I treasure them a lot, and they did decently well, I think. But this first one kind of got out of control in a way that I really love. Um, why do all the young poets write about Persephone? Maybe it's because we can relate to a goddess, to being half sunshine and half grave. Um, that was a mood. When I first wrote this poem, I tagged it, "I'm back on my BS and loving every minute of it," and I think that's key to. Um, I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about what resonates with people, and a lot of time, when you're doing what you love, I think that's the thing that also captures people's attention. So I've taken a pretty good lesson from that, I think. Um, so this next poem that I'm going to read is called Demeter, and it's spoken from her perspective. Sorry, this one's a little emotional for me. So my grief withers the world around me. You want me to bring back the sunlight I can't feel, to coax the world back into growth and warmth. But what if I tell you the source of that growth and warmth is joy? Are you really telling me that if the world depended on your heart, you would never allow a winter? I promise you, when my heart returns to wholeness, the world will bloom again, and you will bloom with it. That promise is all I can give you. Um, so that was that one. Thank you for stopping by, Kate. I really appreciate it. Also, tomorrow, Kate is doing a live stream concert. She does one every week. She is a legend, and she's really, really brilliant. And I think that if you like what I do, you're gonna love what she does. So uh, check her out. Check out Kate Nix. You won't regret it. She's got like one of the best creative communities in this world, and I'm so lucky to have her in my life. So yeah, bye Kate. Um, so yeah, uh, I've got one more poem in this little like mini series that I'm doing. Um, this one doesn't have a title, but I hope you like it. Hades chokes on overgrown asphodel. Tartarus cannot burn it away, and the Styx cannot flood its roots. Persephone has weaponized spring. No one touches her, and no one bothers the souls she gathers to her. Um, it's a little bit of a shorter one, but I uh, I don't know, my relationship to the Persephone myth has kind of changed a lot from just kind of that cool like like ooh she's a queen of the dead and also flower crowns kind of mood to I don't know, you look at the myth and um, it's not a sweet myth. She's abducted. A lot of people kind of romanticize that abduction, and I've been um, I've absolutely been party to that in some of my poetry. And if you I don't know if you look at the original, obviously I haven't looked at the original, but if you look at the myth and the stuff about it, there's some evidence that she was kind of like complicit and like willing to stay with Hades, and there's also some that she's not. But I don't what the original like Homeric hymn to Demeter um, means doesn't necessarily mean everything in context. Meanings evolve, and um, I don't know. I wanted to write a story that kind of like give Persephone some power and some agency without making her complicit in that. I don't know, I wanted to write something that made her invulnerable to any abuse, to anything like that without I don't know without I don't know how to put it. I wanted to write something that was like within her own power, using that power of spring within herself to keep herself safe. And so I wrote that one. I hope you liked it. Um, I'm burning through my poems a little bit fast because I kind of hoped that people would show up a little bit quicker. I'm waiting to read everybody's poems until they're here. If I get to the end of the poems that I've saved up, I can either take some requests. Hello, hi Hayden. And as I'm speaking of this, one of the poets who I'm reading shows up. Hayden is here. Humble Boys on Tumblr. I have been loving Hayden's work for a really long time. I hope you don't mind. I pulled two of yours that I kind of wanted to read. Both they both kind of have different moods, but yeah. And I'm really excited to read these poems, and I'm really glad you're here. I'm glad you made it. Um, so this first one is called Platonicum. It's a poem about platonic soulmates. It feels like January. Everything has the hazy white filter over it, as if you've crafted it all from hand, as if this world doesn't belong to me or them, but only exists under your fingertips. Maybe it does. Maybe this world will burn out on a whim when you decide it should. I can't pretend to know everything. I can only shape the words I create. Can you do that too? Sometimes it feels like you already do. I know the heart exists, but does it still beat if you're not around to hear it? I know the soul exists, but can you feel it if I'm not around to ignite it? I know love exists, but does it really? Still, when there's nothing to hold it to the ground? Did our souls still burn before they touched? I don't think mine did. I think my soul choked up water, froze every winter, shivered under the sun. I think I've spent every winter before this one jumping into fires and hoping to thaw. Um, I love this poem, and I especially love that last line. I tripped over it a little bit, so I think I'm gonna read it again. Um, I think I've spent every winter before this one jumping into fires and hoping to thaw. And then I've got another one by Hayden here that I also wanted to read. Um, I want love like this, all soft, rose petals in my bath, rose gold glow and sea salt dreams, the softness I fall asleep to. This or nothing at all. We are not soft. We have been banging our heads against our walls since May. I've broken every window in my house. I want a love like this. Ice cream, baby's breath, heartbeat. We haven't breathed since April. I am shoving my head into lakes and calling it love. I want a love like this, a love that doesn't hurt. This or nothing at all. Um, so those are Hayden's poems. I love his work. Most of his poems speak to me, but these were kind of the two. I went through his writing tag, and these are two that fit the tone that I was going for a little bit. So I am so thankful that you let me read your work today, and I'm so glad that you're here, Hayden. Also, if you want to promo your blog right now, you can drop a link in the chat, but you don't need to. Whatever's comfortable for you. I think I'm gonna go back and read another one of mine. This one's a little shorter. A lot of my poems don't have titles. I need to start titling my poetry, but I struggle to title things. Also, if you just got here, please say hi. I'd love to hear from you. I'm gonna repeat his Tumblr handle again in a minute if he drops it in the Twitch chat to promo it, I will. But just in case, I'm gonna wait on that. But yeah, so this is one of mine, and it kind of it's kind of a mood right now. It's kind of always my mood. And actually, I wrote this one in response to a prompt. Um, all right, so his blog is humbleboys.tumblr.com. So just the word humble, the word boys, and then tumblr.com. Um, so yeah, I'm always glad to shout out a friend, and your work is brilliant, and more people should see it. Um, all right. I am trapped somewhere between despair and passion. No one person can save the world. I'm too tired to try, and too full of love not to try. I close my eyes to meditate. For a moment, I am weightless, on the edge of rebirth. Um, so yeah. Oh, I just realized I forgot I have the Restream chat. I can just drop it in the chat for everybody to see. And I'm gonna go back and do that for the lovely Miss Leafy as well. Don't mind me, just looking on the computer. The one tough thing about my better streaming setup is that my computer is a little bit harder to reach. Um, so copy link. And no, you're not too late. I'm still reading. Um, JMax, did I say that I was reading one of your poems? I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember what your blog is on Tumblr. Um, I'd like to say I'll get it out any second now, but I do have a little. I have a little bit of memory issues that go with ADHD. Um, and yes, yes, perfect. Been looking forward to reading this one. Um, all right. So this is a poem by Poet Rex on Tumblr. If you want to drop your link in the chat, I will copy and paste it and put it so that people on Twitch can see it too. If you don't feel like promoing it, that's all good. But I thought that you might want to. Just trying to give everybody that opportunity. So there's no freedom from meter, only mastery. T.S. Eliot said that, or something like it. Put even the freest verse behind bars. Does my heart still beat in time? Then tell me no lie of commission. Nothing in this life is mine to keep, but a poem stands on one foot, holding sunset door that says, you can stay the night here. Window on a moonglint bed, soft to fall asleep and dream what morning mirth will bury. Addresses will have changed where events have taken place in a different house on another street. And this is how we forget and why that hallway goes on forever. All my life I have become a tree. It is not difficult to fly, even this petrified being. Then put me back into the piney bog. There germinate a keyhole voice to mirror rooms that wait, and nothing had but branching windowsill above the well where we are all lost. So yeah, I really love that poem. I don't know if you wrote it during the social distancing time, but something about just kind of like thinking about places resonated with me with it. It says it's written in March, so it could be or it could not be, but I love that poem. Yeah, I'm also Hayden. I'm also streaming on YouTube. I know some people who have little. I want to learn how to make one. A couple of my favorite streamers have little charts where like little cards on the side where you can see everything that's going on in both chats on the screen, and I want to learn how to do that. Um, I might actually bother Kate about it later, um, just to find out where I can get where how I can make one of those cards. Um, but for now, this is what we've got. Um, oh, it was a response to a prompt. Yeah, I feel like there's something really magical about prompts. I'm gonna put your Tumblr username in the chat. Some of my favorite poems have been written in response to a prompt. I think there's something about it where it kind of makes you get creative in a little bit of a different way, because it lets something provoke you. And so something I think a lot of times like I'll write a poem when I'm provoked by like an emotion or an image or anything else, but there's something about a prompt where it provokes you and it tells you, okay, you're making a poem about this, whatever that reaction is, you're gonna turn it into something. And I think that's really beautiful. Quite a few of the poems I'm reading tonight are that are mine are in response to prompts or are like from 5 word prompts. I do those a lot. It's been a while since I've done a 5 word prompt. I might have to do that soon because I do love to do a 5 word prompt. But yeah, there's a certain magic to it, I think. So yeah, um, I'm gonna read. Yes, that's exactly the thing. J Max said that that a prompt can crystallize stuff that's been stewing in your mind, and I think that is really true too, and that's a really good point. Um, so yeah, there's something really beautiful about it. Um, I might actually that might actually be the thing I need to do while I'm feeling a little kind of like creatively blocked. I keep going back and forth between being very inspired and very creatively blocked during this whole quarantine time. Um, I say quarantine because we're not in official quarantine where I am. I'm not trying to diminish it. It is a tragic situation. But I might have to get some more. I might have to get some more prompts because I want to be creating stuff. I want to try to make some sense out of things for myself. I think that sharing work, creative work with people is a really beautiful thing and really important in this time. But yeah, so this is a poem about kind of like relating to creativity when I'm feeling down, when I'm feeling depressed. I wrote this very very fast. It kind of came out of me in a burst, as you can see by the uh, I give the kind of the timestamps of when I started and finished at the beginning and the end. But yeah, it's 8:29 and I want to go to bed already, even though I don't. I don't want to be writing this poem. I don't want to talk about a lot of things, like how cluttered my apartment is, or how cluttered my mind is, or how I've been sitting on a draft for almost a month because it scares me. I want to be awake. I want to create and take risks and say everything I've ever wished I could say. It's 8:33 and I just want to sleep. So yeah, that's a poem that kind of just came out of me in a rush, and that's kind of how I've been feeling lately about half the time when I try to create, and it's a feeling that comes over me from time to time, more often than I'd like, but yeah. Um, so this next one I wrote not yesterday. I think I wrote this like 2 days ago. I might have written this yesterday. I don't know when I wrote it. I wrote this one recently. Um, I fell like a tree with nothing to shelter me. I am so sodden with fog that I can no longer burn. Perhaps it is better to grow moss and mushrooms through the gloom. I should have no regrets, but I can't help but wonder if I was made for the flame. Um, so yeah, that kind of crystallizes a lot of the stuff I've been playing with in my poetry lately. Fire, moss, and fog have been some of my main motifs, and uh, it goes a little deeper than I just think they're neat, but I do just think they're neat also. um, so then this next poem, I'm going to get back into the mythological for two more poems, and then I'm gonna read. Uh, Actually, I'm gonna take a break from reading some of mine. Um, so this is a very famous poem. This is by William Wordsworth, and they teach it a lot. Um, there's some stuff that's a little bit cheesy about it, but I like the way that it talks about imagination in a way that I need. And I've been sitting in my apartment, staring out the window at my grandparents' neighbor's daffodils that grow by the side of her house. So um, I'm going to talk about imagination and daffodils using the words of William Wordsworth. And I don't care if it's a little old-fashioned, or if it's a little cheesy, I guess. So, I wandered lonely as a cloud by William Wordsworth. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed and little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft, when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye which is the bliss of solitude, and then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. Um, so yeah, it's also William Wordsworth's birthday today, so I wanted to read little something by him for that reason too. Um, but yeah, I like that poem a lot, and I think that thinking about thinking about the inward eye and thinking about the role that imagination has, especially when you're alone, when you're lonely, I think that imagination can be a really beautiful and powerful voice to um, help keep you grounded and help keep you sane and help keep you as happy as you can be, um, considering whatever circumstances you're in. Um, so I'm gonna read a poem about nature, another poem about nature. Um, I wrote this one after I completed my second chapbook. I kind of consider this my first chapbook. My very first chapbook was a little bit, um, it was okay. It was called Made Mythic, and there's some poems in there that I'm really proud of, but I didn't quite, it was my first chapbook. It was a baby. I didn't quite have a sense of theme. There were a lot of poems that already existed included with poems that I had written specifically for the chapbook, which can work, but I don't know. It didn't quite come together with that one. And for Forest Heart, the chapbook that kind of inspired this poem, that I wrote this poem to celebrate, um, I got a little more vulnerable. It's more cohesive and coherent, and I still love it a lot, and I'm really proud of it. Um, it's not what I do as much with chapbooks now. A lot of my chapbooks now are narrative. Um, you can get them through my Ko-fi. Um, I'm actually gonna drop a Ko-fi link in the chat in case anybody would like to check that out. I think that link goes to Ko-fi. I think that's the proper link. That's not the proper link. Hang on. All right, I forgot the dash. The dash is important. That's what makes it a website. That's what makes it the site that it is. But yeah, if you are interested in this chapbook, that's one of the ones that I think you still get. You still get it. I'm positive, actually. Um, if you donate to my Ko-fi, there's a bunch of other chapbooks on there too. I think I've got like 4 up right now. Um, but yeah, that's there. I did the self promo thing. It's a little hard to do still, but I'm finding my flow, hopefully. But I'll read this poem. Take me back to the forest and make me mythic, intangible, unfathomable. I want to become less like a human and more like the glow that lingers on the back of your eyelids after you stare at the sun through the trees for too long. I want to become the echo of the wind's whisper and the bird's song, the shadow of a fish swimming through the stream. I don't know if I want to be or grow or glow or vanish. All I know is I want to be there when it happens. Uh, so yeah, that poem kind of it kind of hints at a lot of the themes that are in the chapbook. Um, I actually go through different types of trees, and kind of talk about like different events in my life and times in my life through those. So it really is. It's called Forest Heart because it is kind of like an exploration into my heart in a way that I still have a little trouble being certain kinds of vulnerable. That's something I'm working on, but it's a if you want to check it out, I would appreciate you tremendously. Um, so after that, I am going to read um, one of my favorite poems. This one is called Kindness, and it's by Naomi Shihab Nye. Um, and I don't know, it moves me a lot, and it really does tap into. I think that people kind of think there's something a little bit soft about kindness sometimes, and that's not quite what it is. And I think this gets to the essence of it really well. Before you know what kindness really is, you must lose things. Feel the future dissolve in a moment like soft salt in a weakened broth. What you held in your hand, what you counted and carefully saved, all this must go so you know how desolate the landscape can be between regions of kindness. How you ride and ride, thinking the bus will never stop. The passengers eating maize and chicken will stare out the window forever. Before you learn the tender gravity of kindness, you must travel to where the Indian in a white poncho lies dead by the side of the road. You must see how this could be you, how he too was someone who journeyed through the night with plans and the simple breath that kept him alive. Before you know kindness as the deepest thing inside, you must know sorrow as the other deepest thing. You must wake up with sorrow. You must speak it to it till your voice catches the thread of all sorrows, and you see the size of the cloth. Then it is only kindness that makes sense anymore. Only kindness that ties your shoes and sends you out into the day to gaze at bread. Only kindness that raises its head from the crowd of the world to say, "It is I you have been looking for," and then goes with you everywhere, like a shadow or a friend. Um, so yeah, that's one of my favorite poems in the history of poetry. It's really beautiful, and I think that it reaches to the heart of something really true. Um, and yeah, thank you. I've been practicing my reading voice a little bit. I'm glad you're back, Kate. I'm really glad too. I don't know, that poem is deep to my heart in a way that's very very spiritual and very profound. And yeah, I'm glad you heard it. Um, so I am going to read another poem. Um, I think that I'm going to read the other poem by Rita Dove that I wanted to read. It's called Dawn Revisited, um, and I love this one too. Um, I love all the poems I'm reading. I don't know why I keep saying that, but it is true. Um, so, Dawn Revisited. Imagine you wake up with a second chance. The blue jay hawks his pretty wares, and the oak stands still, spreading glorious shade. If you don't look back, the future never happens. How good to rise in sunlight, in the prodigal smell of biscuits, eggs and sausage on the grill. The whole sky is yours to write on, blown open to a blank page. Come on, shake a leg. You'll never know who's down there frying those eggs if you don't get up and see. Um, I love the way this poem looks at the future. It's a really beautiful thing. Oh my goodness. So Kate, if you're on Twitch and you didn't see it, Kate just mentioned possibly collaborating on something like a spoken word album with background music by her. I would be beyond thrilled. Um, that would be really really exciting. We should talk about that later. But oh man, that would be incredibly exciting. Wow. Uh, so yeah, that would be awesome. I'll message you about it, or you can message me or whatever. But yeah, that's that's amazing. All right, yes, we're doing the thing. Let's do the thing. Um, all right, I am so excited. All right, go make food. Go nourish yourself. Go get the go go get those eggs with the person you love. I know they're not really eggs, metaphorical eggs like the poem before, but yeah. I'm sorry. I'm happy, y'all. Uh, see you later. So I don't know which poem I want to read next. Should I read? I only have a couple more of mine in the queue, and then it's two by people that I was hoping were gonna pop up and say hello. Um, if they don't, I'm just gonna read them at the end of the stream, I think. Uh, so those will be my last two because I want to save it. And then I've got another one of my favorite poems, "Wild Geese" by Mary Oliver. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna read both of the two. Oh, thanks, Hayden. Um, you are a sweetheart, and I am so glad that you're here. Um, so I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna read my two. They're both kind of mythological. I might find another one of mine to read. Um, if you guys have any suggestions of stuff that I should read, um, of mine, like if you can think of anything, like, oh hey, I like that thing that you did, or here's a theme I'd like to hear from you, let me know. And I can absolutely do that. It'll just take me a second to search up, but uh, yeah, I'm gonna read my two. I'm going to read one of my favorite poems of all time, and then I am going to read Christina's and Eliot's poems, and then we shall conclude, I believe. Um, I timed out pretty well, though. I got about an hour's worth of poems. I think I did good. All right. This one, I've written a lot of poems about the goddess Artemis. She was one of my favorite goddesses in mythology when I was a mythology obsessed kid, and lately, a lot of the time when I write about her, I'm also working on a chapbook involving Artemis. But lately, she's more of an antagonistic figure um, than a role model, I guess. And I don't know what I don't know what that means. I'm not gonna psychoanalyze myself about it. Um, but this one's kind of somewhere in the middle. The branches hung heavy in the silver light of the moon. Light and shadow shuddered together to become goddess. Artemis frowned at the sight of me. She stretched out her hand and transformed my left eye into a pearl. You haven't picked up your bow in years, she said. You don't need the eye. You can have it back when you return to the fight. Um, yeah, so there's that poem. There's also a little reference to the wasteland in there. There's this line. Those are pearls that were his eyes. That always stuck with me, and I don't know. It just kind of popped into my head in this context. But yeah, there's that one. Um, and the last original of mine that I'm going to read, unless anybody has any requests, is called Pandora, and it's another mythology poem. I put a lot of mythology poems in the list today. Pandora. The gods were nothing but makers of chaos, of metamorphoses in me. The evils of the world were their intended inheritance to humanity. We were a storm that could crumble their mountain to dust. I was the gift meant to save them. They would have spilled chaos into the world some other way if my hands and heart had failed them. I did my best. I held on to hope and never let it go. Shouldn't you be thankful? Um, so yeah, that's the last poem of mine that I'm reading today. I feel like Pandora gets a little bit too much of a bad rap in the mythology, on purpose, because as we know, the mythology is very misogynistic, and that's a justification for why women are bad. So I wanted to spin it another way, especially because the gods are so antagonistic within a lot of the ancient Greek mythology. And I don't know. I just wanted to. I've been really enjoying exploring that side of mythology a little bit more. Um, so I'm going to read two more poems. Two more poems that are by friends of mine, and one poem that is by not a friend of mine, by the legendary Mary Oliver, who's also a poet who I really admire profoundly. Um, and this one also, Glemshoe on Tumblr has a really amazing reading of this poem if I happen to fail in mine. But I love Ship's reading voice. I think they should do voice acting. That's a whole nother matter. Um, and not really my place to say either. But my rendition, I feel like is I practiced it and I felt like my rendition fell a little short. I'm feeling self-conscious. But here we go. Maybe I should listen to the poem. All right. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of rain are moving across the landscape, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. I love this poem. Please remember you have a treasured place in the family of things, and just treasure yourself like you treasure the world around you. Um, yeah, it's one of my favorites. Oh, Miss Leafy, I hadn't really considered it, but I think that based on the reception I'm getting, I think that I'm going to read my work a little bit more often. Um, and I don't know, it. I guess I'm doing a spoken word album with Kate, so you'll hear more from me for sure. Um, I can promise you that. All right, I've got two more works to read. This first one that I'm going to read is by Archistratigo, and it's kind of between like a little flash fiction short story um, and a poem. It's part of Eliot's Modern Myths series. I'm gonna actually drop the blog link. Um, but yeah, here's this one. Um, it's a collaboration with a blog called Il Remus. But yeah, I really like this poem. Um, and it's about mythology, and I like. You're gonna see why I like it so much as soon as you read it, especially the way I've been talking about mythology. That suspended, melancholic longing threatens to wrap its laurel stem-like fingers around his throat and permanently deprive him of air. They don't die. Gods evolve. Apollo walks as if the world owes him. It is a state that cannot be helped. It is the face of all immortals who watch mortals wither through time. When he watches her, Apollo feels very immortal emotions curl inside his very immortal chest. Daphne, this Daphne, in her white sports uniform, with the green letter scribbled like vines, holds ramrod straight, perfect posture as she lets the arrow. Daphne is one of the lucky. She escaped, arms extended toward the sky, skin peeling like bark, and Apollo really ought to leave her alone, but he can't, feeling the tug of Eros's laughter, to burn for someone who loathes your very existence. Apollo watched her flee once. It is what he expects when he approaches her. But Daphne, she is all hostility and fire, and now she just draws back her fist and punches Apollo's lights out. So you see why I like that. And then this last poem is by Christina Hopp, and I'm gonna drop her poetry blog too. I might also drop her Instagram because she's been a little more active on Instagram lately. So there's her Tumblr and there's her Insta. That's not how you spell Instagram. That should take you to her Instagram. Let me make sure it takes you to her Instagram. It does indeed. All right. Um, so Christina works a lot with religion in her poetry in a way that I kind of envy. Her religious poetry is raw and beautiful and brilliant, and I've said this many times today, but I do love it a lot, and it speaks very profoundly to me. And you should also look up. She's got a few books out too, so you should look her up. I've got a couple, and I've loved them both. Moving closer, ever closer, always. The river is dry and it's splashing, and I have never felt so alone. Your downpour would knock me over, I know, would break my bones. The salvation would be in my alignment, but I'd be cursing the entire walk home. You and I, dampened in the air, we know how to sit together without war. You, bloodied by the mess of creation. Me, shiny and bitter, feet freezing in the water, turning me to stone. We could sit and talk about what I need, and you'd watch me, eyes more wet than the river, craving to do the work of my transforming. But I can't tear away from it all, so we move closer, ever closer, always, flirting with victory, running it through my fingers like something to consider. Yeah, I love that poem a lot. It's really beautiful. I love most of her poems, and it was hard to pick one, but I wanted to get something a little bit recent. And yes, Hayden, Christina is the best. I keep saying everybody's the best, but that's because I'm surrounded by many people who are the best. I am so lucky and blessed to have the circle that I have. Um, so yeah, um, I might look up one more poem of mine if you guys want to hear one more poem of mine to wrap things up, and then I'm gonna sign out because I have about an hour's worth of reading in me, and then I lose my voice. I'm trying to build up uh, my vocal heart strength, uh, endurance, vocal endurance. Trying to build up my vocal endurance, but um, as it is, I and it's nice because this is something that I can do to help build up my vocal endurance. But for now, um, awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna do more readings, so I'll keep you updated when I do those. And thank you. So what should the mood be? Should the mood be something a little bit on the sweeter side or something on the more raw side? Because I've got a couple possibilities that I'm looking at. Uh, but yeah, let me know what you're in the mood for. All right, we're going for the more raw option. Um, so I wrote this poem about something that I don't know that I go through if I'm in a bad place. I tend to get a little well, you'll see. Um, I am pacing back and forth in my apartment, trying to keep from calling you with a fistful of matches. Any friction, and I will start a fire. The thought of the pain I may cause stops me nearly every time. Nearly. Deep down, I don't want to hurt you. In times like these, I forget that I can plant instead of burn. I am restless and cold and in need of a blaze. It has all grown so gray. I don't care if I burn myself or you, as long as I can be rid of the fog. Fire is vibrant and warm, and it flickers and flutters like the universe being born, like I am in control of my life for once, until it dies down. Then the gray returns with a vengeance. Smoke and ash, gray and icy, and me, truly alone in their midst, with nothing under control. I am no god. Fire in my hands only destroys. It only burns. I know we have not talked in a while, but please, let me keep my distance until the sun returns and chases away the gray. Leave me alone until I remember my love for what grows. Uh, yeah, so there's that one. I wrote it pretty recently. It wasn't my most popular poem, but it's one that I'm really proud to have written. So I think that's absolutely something. Thank you, thank you so much. Thank you, you guys. That really means a lot. I've found every so often I'll write a poem and it doesn't get quite as much attention, but the people who really matter tend to like it, and this is kind of being proven true right now. I love you guys so much. Thank you. I think I'm gonna do one more. Um, well, Tumblr doesn't really have it doesn't really have an algorithm in the same way. You're good. You're good. A big part of what is helpful with Tumblr is just community. Um, the thing that I think has really helped me is, and I haven't been quite as good at maintaining that community, but especially when I first started out, I made an amazing community of people. I made a whole side blog to share other people's work because I felt like I didn't have enough room for all the work that I wanted to share on my main blog. You know, really the way to be the way to get um, noticed on Tumblr is just you got to talk to people. You gotta feature other people's work. You've got to make other people part of your life. You got to be part of their life. You've got to make them wonder, oh, have you posted yet? You want also you just got to reshare things. You got to reshare your own work a lot because since it's not an algorithm, only the people that are online right then will see it. So you got to keep the cycle going. You've got to be willing to sit with a poem and reshare it a couple times. Have a queue of your own work, cycling things back through. That's really the only way to get attention on Tumblr. And I also just want to say that Tumblr isn't the best. Tumblr is an amazing community, but if you're hoping for like widespread commercial success, you definitely want to be on other platforms too, because Tumblr is kind of a struggling website. Um, it's tough. It's just a little bit tough. You people leave almost as quickly as they join. That's just what it is. So if you're looking at growing a following, at like maybe trying to self-publish or anything like that, you want to be on um, you want to be on other sites. You want to be on Instagram. You want to be on Twitter, um, and you can have those be places where you kind of refer people back to your poetry. But yeah, if I'm giving advice for success, um, especially commercial success, I can't give advice without giving a disclaimer that it is important to not just have Tumblr, and I'm not the best at that. But if you're a photographer, that's incredible. Definitely, um, like keep rolling with your Tumblr, but if you, I see tons of people having success on Instagram with posting their photos and oh yeah, absolutely. Streaming is part of what I'm doing to like branch out. I'm hoping that I'm hoping that it's successful. I'm still very new to streaming, and so far it's working out good. I've had a really great time today, and I got to connect with you guys a lot better. So that's a huge win in my book. But Miss Leafy, um, Instagram is a really great platform, um, especially with your photography, because you can like showcase your photography as well as your poetry. You can link photos and captions, poetry as captions, the way you might want stuff to go together. Um, yeah, streaming was really intimidating for me too. I was really lucky. I probably wouldn't have even tried it. Sorry, I keep getting distracted. I'll work on that. But yeah, I'm gonna recommend Instagram to Miss Leafy. I got a lot of guidance from. I know I've been talking about Kate a couple times, but Kate Nix, she's a singer. Her lyrics are gorgeous and poetic, and I really think that you guys would like her work if you want to check her out. But she does a live stream concert every single week on Wednesday at 8. It's called the Lullaby Lounge, and she gave me some tips and some pointers and just kind of made it feel a lot more accessible to me. And it's nice just to have somebody in your community that you can get advice with stuff. Again, community is so important. Um, yeah, and that's the thing too. There's nothing wrong with your blog being private, and if you want, you can even decide your blog is just for you and the small circle of people that read your poetry, and your Instagram is for the world and the poetry that you feel confident sharing with the world. Like that's hugely valid. I think that's important for keeping yourself grounded as a creator too. Having those boundaries, kind of knowing what you want to share and what you're um, not quite as willing to share, and just knowing what's for I don't know what's for everyone and what's for kind of like your inner circle. You'll figure it out. You're in my Discord, so we can chat about this later too. I'm actually gonna throw a link to my Discord in here because I would love it if all of you guys were in my Discord. I have a little creative Discord that is really lovely. Just about everybody here, not just about everybody here, about half the people here are in it, and I've only had it for a little while, but I already feel like I would be lost without my Discord. It's a really nice place, and we have a good time there. But yeah, so we can discuss that later. I am going to read one more poem, and then I'm going to be done because my voice is getting a little fried. Next time before I do this, I'm gonna make tea. I'll probably still keep it to about around an hour, but tea is good and it helps. This is a little short one, but I think you'll like it. The future will be what we create it to be. It is art, a chaotic whirl of colors created by artists moving randomly. If we move together, fueled by hope, the future will reflect our passion. The canvas will shimmer with life and growth. Um, yeah, I feel like that's a good note to end on and kind of a good message to share. Thank you guys so much for joining me here today. This has been one of my favorite streams that I've done. I'm feeling really excited and kind of like creatively revived, and it was amazing getting to share some of your work and to read my own in this great community. So thank you so much. Take care, and good night. Bye, everyone. Thank you. I hope the rest of your day is wonderful too. Probably gonna make dinner in a minute, so that'll be exciting. Um, but yeah, it was so wonderful getting to get together with you guys today. Bye bye.